All right, everyone, welcome to our webinar on the SWE Program Development Grants. Our agenda for today, oh, Allison, I guess this is you if you want to take it over.
That's fine. Our agenda today, we're going to go over what, who's running the PDG committee, what program development grants are. We're going to talk through a few examples for you, talk about the requirements, how to apply, the tips that we have for you in the application process, some discussion about the FAQ document we have and what is not funded. Go ahead. So this is our PDG Committee Leadership for next fiscal year. We will be working with Lindsay as our BOD contact and Christina as our HQ contact. Myself is Allison, and I'm the chair this current fiscal year. Michelle will be our chair next year, and our chair-elect for next year will be announced as soon as it receives BOD approval. So what is a program development grant? This committee gives out grants between $250 and $5,000. We call them microgrants. We award them to sections, MALs, SWE committees, affiliates. We award around 30 to 50 grants per year. And these are to help your SWE organizations develop professional development, advocacy, and outreach programming. So we've added a few examples of some PDG events that have been funded and were very successful in the past. Things like workshops on challenges faced by women in the workplace. Salary negotiation is always a good event for a section. And gaining confidence through improv and outreach examples are things like Introduce a Girl to Engineering Days, Girl Scout Days, Wow That's Engineering, and any work that is done between SWE and FIRST Robotics. So if you go to the SWE website and type PDG into the search bar, you will find our page under Program Development Grant. And all of the information that we are talking about today can be found there, as well as our schedule for the next fiscal year of when our review cycles are. So the eligibility requirements for program development grant. The request must come from a formal SWE organization. So it must be a section, a MAL, or society committee, or an affiliate. The leadership of the event has to be SWE-led. Your SWE organization needs to be in good standing with HQ. The funding request must be submitted by a SWE member, and we're looking for different people to fill the roles of grant submitter, project manager, and treasurer. All of this information can be found on our website that we just showed you how to find in our FAQ document. So the financial eligibility requirements are that we do not give out grants that are less than $250, and we do not give out grants that are over $5,000. You must have a bank account that the funds can be transferred to. We cannot send the funds to an individual. You cannot have, your organization, your SWE organization cannot have more than 3 open grants and no overdue final reports. So when you are issued a grant, the last step of it is like a closeout final report, and that must be completed for any grant that you have received in the past in order to be eligible for another grant.
All right, so I'm going to go over how to apply for each of the grants. We do our applications through the Smarter Select system, which some of you may be familiar with from other applications and award submittals through the society. The link we currently have on here goes to one of our old grant applications. We don't currently have any live for the upcoming fiscal year, but when we do, those will be available on our website that we showed you how to find. We have 4 deadlines per year for fiscal year. An example is our first one will be August 15th, 2020, and that is for programs that are occurring after August 30th, 2020. We have our tentative schedule listed here. When those dates are finalized and the links are created, those will be on our website. But we have 2 deadlines in 2020 and then 2 at the beginning of 2021. And we want to remind everyone to plan ahead for your application. Overall, from when the application is due, there's about 45 days for reviewing the proposals, our committee meetings, making decisions, and getting award notifications out. So we're going to go over some tips for your application to help you make sure that you put forth a strong application for our committee to review. So this is a list of some of the things you need before you apply. You need your suite organization information, treasurer verification, project and participant information, and to put a note on here, there's a question about whether or not your event is reoccurring. And the purpose of this question is to identify events that are happening multiple times within the fiscal year. So if you have a workshop that's happening once a month for 4 months or every week for the semester, that's what we mean by reoccurring. I know a lot of you have an event that you host year after year after year, and that's not what we're trying to capture with that question. You will also need your volunteer and program information, event and registration fee information, and then you will need to submit a budget and your request for funds for this. And we have more details about each of these sections that we can go over if anyone has questions after we make it through everything. It was just a lot of text to include on one slide, so we're trying to give you the most high-level view of this to help you out right now. So when the application links are live in FY21, you will click on them and be taken to a page that looks similar to this. It'll go over everything that you must have and all of the requirements needed to submit the application. There is a button or a link down at the bottom that says preview. And if you would like to look at the application before starting one, this is where you want to do that. Once you click on apply, it'll open up an application and you'll start getting reminder emails about when it's due and what you have left to do. So if you're not quite ready to jump into filling that out, preview is what you want to do for this. All right, so this is something that the committee has asked for some help getting the word out. One of the first questions on our application is, what is your suite organization name? We get a lot of applications that uses Society of Women Engineers as their name, and that's not helpful to our review committee for looking at it. So we need specifics of what school you're associated with, what section you are, what your organization name is. So instead of saying suite officers, we want University of blank suite officers. Or the same with using acronyms. Locally, they may make sense to you, but our committee is comprised of people from all over the country as well as internationally. So saying SCV suite doesn't make sense to our members outside of the Santa Clara Valley region. Same with university names. Wichita State University, where I'm located, goes by WSU, so that makes sense to me. But for someone on the West Coast, they're probably thinking Washington State University. So we're asking you to help us out a little bit and spell out your names and be descriptive of who you are so we can better review your applications. All right, so the next thing in the application is the treasurer verification. You will plug in your treasurer's information and their contact information, and it will send them an email that looks similar to this about what they need to submit for your application. So when they get this email and click on it, they will be taken to the treasurer verification portion of the application and will be asked the following questions. Whether or not you are signed up to receive payment through Concur, if your SWE organization is in good standing, if you have any active or overdue grants from program development grants, and again, if you are signed up through Concur. So if those are information that you do not know before you fill out the treasurer verification, there's some contact information on there for you to reach out to make sure you're answering those questions correctly. All right, so a note about repeat funding request. For FY20, we were unable to consider repeat requests for events that had already received PDG funding. The purpose of PDG is to help establish new programs. We are trying to help sections and organizations create either new programming or help monetarily with any significant changes you have to an existing program. We are expecting to have similar funding sources next year and be limited on the total number of awards we are able to make. So if you are someone who has had an event that has received PDG funding in the past, please reach out to us before applying to talk to us about whether or not you're eligible again, or if you have a new event that has any questions, you can reach out to us as well. Like we mentioned earlier, the overall timeline for when you submit your application to when you are notified on your if funds received are about 45 days. Everyone on our committee is there on a volunteer basis. So the way we have things scheduled out is to give each of our members a little bit of time to work on the reviews, compile results, and meet to discuss the grant funding. So for US-based applications, you want to submit your grants approximately 3 to 4 months before your event. If you are international, we ask you to consider looking 5 to 6 months out to allow us a little bit more time to do international wiring of money. After we get the applications and go through the review process, we'll send out notifications on whether or not your grant has been awarded. If you receive grant funding, you'll hold your program, and then you'll be required to submit final reports to close out the grant. If you are rejected for your grant application, you are allowed to make any improvements necessary and reapply. But again, the same thing, it needs to be approximately 3 to 4 months before you're planning to hold your event. So make sure you have enough time to do that if that's the route you need to go. All right, we'll plug this again on our website. We have an FAQ document. We ask everybody to please read it before you start your application. It answers a lot of questions that will help you filling things out, and it goes over examples of what is allowed to be submitted and things that are not allowed to be submitted.
And we will, sorry, Michelle, we will update that FAQ document before this, before the first cycle of applications for next fiscal year. So the address will change, but if you go to our website, it will be posted on there.
Thank you, Allison. Another reminder, please don't use acronyms. Not everybody uses the same ones except for SWE. We're okay if you want to use that. We know what SWE means. Same thing along the lines of describing your event. You are entrenched in it. You know what you're doing and what everything means. Make sure your reviewers understand this as well. Most of us aren't going to know anything about your event. We're not going to be familiar with it. So please explain it to us in enough detail that we can understand exactly what you're trying to do so we can better review your applications. Another note, there is a question on the application about whether or not your program includes recruitment. We want to point out that it's okay to, quote, recruit people to SWE. We know if you're hosting an event, you're going to talk about your section or your organization and explain to people what it means to you and talk to them about joining as well. We are okay with that. What we are trying to get across with the point of recruitment is we are unable to fund recruiting for colleges or university. So if your event includes some kind of recruiting for students to come pay money to attend your school, that won't be funded through PDG. A last note is to make sure you have strong learning objectives for your activities. That is what our reviewers are looking at when evaluating your applications. We need to make sure that your event has a professional development objective and not is just networking, or your outreach has a strong learning objective that you're teaching or promoting and not just doing an activity to have fun. Once again, we'll plug our FAQs. Please, please, please read these before you start your application and even before starting your event planning process. This will help you understand more of the application process and what you can request for funding.
And you can always email us. Our email address is pdgchair@gmail.com, and it will be on the last slide if you have questions.
So our FAQ document has a list of items that are typically not funded. We've pulled out a couple of ones that we often see in applications. Travel expenses like hotel rooms or local transportation for volunteers or adults. We can't pay for any travel expenses for you to host your event or go to the event. We can't award funds for cash prizes or gift cards as giveaways. We can't award funds for speaker gifts if the speaker is being paid a fee to come to your event to speak. Alcohol is never funded by SWE. We can't fund professional photography, and we can't fund fundraising events. This is really just a short snippet of items that are not funded, so please check the FAQs to get the complete list. And once again, like Allison said, we're going to update the FAQs a little bit for FY21, but that will be accessible through our PDG webpage. All right, so the final thing that you will be required to do when you're awarded a PDG grant is complete the final report and finish out your closeout. If you fail to submit your final report and close out the grant, this will prevent your SWE organization from being eligible to receive another grant. This is very important, especially for sections where you're having turnover or school sections that have people graduate. We want to make sure that you're leaving your SWE organization in good standing so they're eligible in future years to keep receiving grants. Your final report that you will have to submit include submitting receipts for the purchases you've made, pictures, a final expense report, and any other documents or links that may be needed to finalize your event. All right, so how is PDG funded? We have grants and companies that fund PDG. We are always looking for other ways to get grants to apply to get funding for PDG, to pass along those funding for microgrants to our suite organizations. If you know of a company that may be interested in supporting these types of grants, please contact strategic partnerships at SWE.org to offer suggestions. We have been reaching out to some new partners this year, and we are excited for the path that that might lead PDG to in the future. For anyone who's interested in becoming involved in PDG, we typically welcome like 3 to 5 new members each year. We do everything through web meetings and online discussions. We have approximately 7 phone calls each fiscal year to meet. We have the 4 review cycles, and each of those cycles requires about 2 to 3 hours of your time to review applications and comment and submit your thoughts on each of them. It's a great opportunity to serve on a society level committee. We just had our sign up for new committee members a couple of months ago, but if this is something that you're interested in the future, please reach out to us and we can get you more information. All right, so our final note about PDG, we know that the world looks a little bit different right now with COVID-19 and limitations on group gatherings. Our PDG committee has started brainstorming some suggestions for ways that your organization may be able to implement new opportunities or new events that don't require large groups of people meeting in one place. So some of the ideas that they had were starting a book club with professional development books, and that's something that you can host over web meetings or discussion boards. The same with web-based meetings, and maybe you bring in a professional speaker to talk to your group. Outreach kits that you prepare ahead of time and send out, and then provide an online demonstration to do outreach that way. Essay contest, etiquette dinner, where you each prepare your own dinner at home and meet online to do that over a web call, or hosting weekly, monthly online engineering challenges that you can interact with students in your area to do. This is really just a short list of things that we've tried to come up with to help spark some thought process on ways that you may be able to have meetings. If you have any other ideas that you think other sections or groups might be interested in, feel free to email us and we'll talk through whether or not it's eligible for PDG funding. All right, with that, we are ready for anyone who has any questions. I don't know, are we able to unmute people at this point, or can they do that themselves?
Hona, are you able to facilitate questions coming in? Okay, I'm showing her still on mute. So if anybody has questions, you can try putting them in the chat box and we'll see if we can see them. Alternately, you can also email us at pdgchat pdgchair@gmail.com, and we'll be okay. It looks like maybe we're having some technical difficulties now. So thank you to everyone who attended, and we hope that this presentation helped answer some of your questions around the program development grants, and we look forward to seeing your grants in the next fiscal year.